Do you have the same New Year's resolutions year after year? Or maybe you find yourself endlessly frustrated by the fact that you aren't making any progress on what you consider to be your top priority? If this rings true to you, two things are true. One, you're not alone in this experience. And two, you're gonna wanna stay tuned for today's episode. Welcome to the Do More, Stress Less podcast. I'm your host, Alexis Hasselberger, a time management and productivity coach. In every episode, I give you actionable, practical tips to help you learn to use your time in a way that feels good to you every day. No more hustling, scrambling, or struggling to keep your head above water. So let's dive in, and soon enough, you'll be doing more and stressing less. Let me ask you a question. What are your priorities? You can pause and stop and think about it for a second. And then let me ask you another question. How well is your time aligned with those priorities? If you answered very well to the second question, feel free to stop listening right now. You are all set. But if you answered anything else, you might be in a priority gap. So let's keep going. Now, if how you're spending your time is not super representative of your stated priorities, then I'm going to bet you're feeling a little frustrated, right? You might be feeling misaligned. You might be wondering why you're not moving forward on your goals. You might be feeling stuck. You're probably feeling a little bit down on yourself, or maybe more than a little bit down on yourself. And if you're not sure how well your time is aligned with your priorities, well, there's one simple way to find out. Engage in a little bit of time tracking. Now, I know that doesn't sound like super fun or sexy, but it is going to be a way to find out if your time is well aligned with your priorities. And here's how you do it. So first, write down what your priorities are. Whatever you think your stated priorities are, write them down. Maybe this is for related to work, maybe it's related to home, maybe it's both. Then for a week or so, track your time. Now you can do this a number of different ways, but one way that makes it pretty easy is to use a free app called Toggle. It's Toggl. It's free. You can use it for this purpose. You never have to use it again if you don't want to after the first week of tracking. And then try tracking honestly, like without judgment, to the best of your ability. And try not to judge yourself if you forget for a few hours or a whole day. Just start again, right? Sit down after you've got some data, sit down at the data and take a look at where your time is going and see if you can map it to what you said your priorities were. And if you can't, well, if you find that your time is not well aligned, then you've got a couple of options for getting into alignment. So you can do two things, right? The first thing you could do is just admit that the things you're spending your time on are actually your true priorities. And that's okay. Honestly, you will feel better if you admit that, right? Or you could reallocate your time towards your priorities, making them your true priorities because you're kind of putting your time where your mouth is, right? Now, it would be super easy to think, well, why wouldn't my time be automatically aligned with my priorities, right? But the reality is that we live in a world with so many competing demands on our time. And this misalignment tends to show up in all sorts of ways, little ways and big ways every single day. For instance, maybe you block time to work on that big project, right? Your priority, but you end up doing email instead. Or maybe you want to delegate more. You say, maybe that's in your performance review that you're trying to delegate more, but then you just keep doing tasks yourself because it's faster. Or maybe you say you want to spend more time on high level strategy, right? But you actually spend most of your days in meetings or fighting fires. Now, what can you do about this? I'm a big fan of a few different strategies. The first of which is separating the planning from the doing so that you can start moving from that reactive mode that doesn't really feel very good to proactive mode. To do this, you want to decide in advance how you'll spend your time and make sure that you leave enough buffer in your day to allow yourself to absorb the truly important or urgent items that come up as needed so that you don't feel like what was the point of planning because your plan always goes awry anyways. This is incredibly important. That buffer is necessary because for each one of us, there is always some amount of stuff I didn't know about yesterday that has to be done today. And if we don't actively plan for that, but we do try to plan our time, we are going to feel really demoralized every single day. Now, another strategy that I love is to define if-then plans for when decision points come up throughout the day. where you might be tempted to take care of something minor but easy at the expense of, what you actually care about, right? The third strategy that I really love is to use scripts for pushing back and for saying no and for setting boundaries. Right? If you can define language that you feel good about in advance, you are much less likely to give into stuff that's not actually your priority simply because somebody is asking you for it, right? When somebody is right there in front of you, really it is something where it's hard. It's hard to say no because you don't have the right words and you're a nice person and you want to say yes. I mean, we're socialized to say yes, especially women, right? So if you can come up with some scripts, some language that you can use over and over in each of these cases, then it is going to be a lot easier for you to stick to your guns there, to maintain your time in alignment with those priorities. And look, I am not saying this from up on my high horse. I can fall prey to misalignment of time too, right? In fact, somewhat recently, my husband said to me, I think that you prioritize your business and then pottery and then our family. My knee jerk reaction was like, no way, it's family first, then business, then pottery. But because my husband is a pretty considered person and he doesn't say things flippantly, I knew I needed to take a deeper look inside to see if there was any truth to what he was telling me or if maybe he was just having an emotional reaction. Because even if in my head and my heart, it's family first, clearly he was experiencing something different. And when I looked at my time, it actually did tell a slightly different story than what I thought in my own head. So even though I know that when push comes to shove, I'm going to choose my family every single time, it's also true that I have been spending a lot of time at the pottery studio over the past couple of years. And while the pottery studio brings me a ton of joy, I also know that I need to put my time where my mouth is. So I'm currently embarking on a little bit of time realignment of my own. Will I be still spending time at the pottery studio? Yes, I will. But I will also be much more mindful of spending free time with my family. I am also going to be doing that. I'm going to be way more mindful of that so that they can no longer say that it's business and pottery that comes first because really family does come first. So I want you to think about your time, your goals, your priorities. And I want you to be honest with yourself. Are there any areas where you need to do a little bit of time realignment? Or are there any areas where you would be better off simply admitting that where you're spending your time, that's actually your true priority and that that is totally okay? It's time for a little bit of self-reflection. And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Do More, Stress Less podcast. If today's episode resonated with you, share this episode with a friend or two who might appreciate a little more ease in their days. I promise you won't regret doing this 30-second good deed. See you next time.